Hi guys, this is Shayna from YarnTube. So we're gonna try this again with doing a YarnTube podcast. I know I did my first one back in April and wasn't quite sure how the scheduling was gonna work back then. And apparently that was not a great time to try and start a podcast because I just got crazy busy and could not continue at that point. But I've got kind of a schedule figured out now, so it should work pretty well for me to do one every other week for you guys. And basically it's going to be very knitting centric, but I feel like a lot of us in the knitting community kind of gravitate towards each other because we all love yarn and we like doing things with yarn. But we also have a lot of other interests too, and so I might throw a few other random things that I'm doing in there as well that I think you might find interesting. If you don't know who I am, I'm Shayna, Shayna Scott. There are actually a lot of Shaynas in the knitting world. It's super weird. I like never meet them in real life, but now we're all knitting. So I'm Shayna Scott. I'm a knitwear designer and just general yarn hoarder. I have my website at YumiYarns.com. I also have my patterns up on Ravelry. Some of them are on Lovecraft, some of them are Knit Picks. So a few different places throughout the web. But if you want to find me on like any social media thing, I'm Yumi Yarns, YumiYarns. And the reason I picked that name is because one, surprisingly, there are more than one Shayna in the knitting world, or there's more than one Shayna in the knitting world. And so I was kind of trying to come up with something that would work well with it. And Shayna in Yiddish means beautiful. And in Japanese, Yumi also means beautiful. So beautiful yarns, which I really liked, and I liked that tie into my name. But I also, like growing up, I was very, very much into anime and manga and like all Asian culture, particularly Japanese culture. We've got some close family friends that have relatives over in Japan and are Japanese themselves, and so there was a bit of interest that way, and just a lot of my friends were kind of in that whole thing, which back when I was in high school we were the super nerds, which is fine. We all knew what we liked and got along and could speak each other's nerd language, so that's the important part, right? And so that's one of the reasons why I kind of gravitated towards trying to find a Japanese tie-in, because since it was during high school and middle school stuff, and those are kind of your formative years, you know, there was a lot of the aesthetics and a lot of the things that I'm generally drawn to can kind of be traced back to that time in my life, and kind of a lot of those interests and characters from my favorite series and stuff like that. And so that was one other reason why I kind of went towards the Japanese route when I was trying to find a name for my yarn design, for my knitwear design. I also do crochet, not a ton of crochet, but I do some crochet patterns, and they're not very complicated. I don't teach crochet anymore. I did teach it in the past, and I kind of get really nervous with it because I don't feel like I'm very knowledgeable in that area compared to knitting. Knitting is kind of my default. Like I feel like I could teach anybody anything in knitting, whereas crochet I really feel out of my depth a lot of the time. But some of the crochet patterns that I have are really fun, and most of them are free. So if you have crochet questions, I can probably point you to a source. If you have knitting questions, I can probably help you out. But as you can tell, I also kind of get distracted and trail off to various topics. So I have a couple things to show you today. We'll kind of get back to the whole point of the podcast here. This is my co-host, not quite, kind of. my pile of yarn. These are mostly whips. I also have a ton of yarn on the table in front of me. So I'm gonna get through what I can right now. We may carry some over to the next episode. We'll see how things go. Anything that I carry over will probably be acquisitions because I may have had a lot of yarn coming into my house this summer. So without further ado, we're gonna start off today with what I'm wearing, which is not a recent finish. But we had the first snow this morning. It was so pretty. So my little boy Cairo is 6 and he absolutely loves winter. He loves cold, he loves snow. My husband hates all of it, which makes it even better because my 6-year-old is kind of ornery sometimes and purposely rubs it into my husband whenever it gets cold outside. My husband grumbles and Cairo thinks it's hilarious. So this morning Cairo woke up and it was like just as the sun was coming up, so you know it was kind of pink on this horizon, and I went to open the windows and saw these just huge massive snowflakes. And it was just so super beautiful because it wasn't like the cold January icy gross snowfall. It was just light and fluffy and just tons of them. I posted a video on my Instagram, so if you're curious and want to watch just like a little short video, that's where it is. But it was just a really nice way to start the day, and it just really got me in like this cozy spirit of wanting to just bundle up and light candles and have hot cocoa, and yeah, it was just like the perfect way to start the day because since Cairo loves the snow and everything, both him and I would just sat by the windows in the living room watching the snow fall this morning as the sun came up, and it was really fun. And so I wanted to wear something super snuggly, and this is like one of my absolute favorite things that I've ever made. It's my Exploration Station by Stephen West, and I'll loop it around here. I just love it. It was a super fun knit. I know it's been knit like a million times by tons of people in like every color combination you can imagine. But it was such a fun project, and it was one of the first projects I made when I was really getting back into knitting. And I actually jumped in during the mystery knit along and actually knit along during the mystery knit along. I didn't just buy the pattern like I normally do now and continue on with all my other things. And which we'll get to that. But I love it. It's made from a bunch of stash yarns. The only one that I bought was this one. And I am so sad. This was a Rowan fingering weight, and it was something called like artistic hand paint or something like that. It is literally like the best neutral ever because it's just like the perfect shade of creamy tan that goes with so many different colors. I was really sad when I found out they were discontinuing it and our store didn't have any more, so I couldn't like stock up on a ton of it. Also, it was kind of expensive for me at the time, so it's just very sad it was not gonna be there anymore. But then the rest of the colors are all very similar, just like these cranberry shades. I think one or two of them are Dream in Color from old Dream in Color clubs. Like this one might have been like circa 2008. Like super old, from back when I first started knitting. And then this one, this super deep red here. Let's see if I can get it. See how beautiful it, I don't know if it's showing up how super saturated and gorgeous that is. One of my friends who is no longer dying she dyed that one up, and I think it was called like Scab or something. It was a horrible name. But it was like the most gorgeous shade of deep red, and I just love it. And so it was one of those skeins that you just kind of hoard because it's beautiful and you know there's never going to be any more of it. But this was one of those projects where when I signed up for the mystery knit along, I was like just so excited, and I don't know, it was kind of one of those projects where at the time everything about it felt very selfish to me because I was just kind of at a place mentally where I was just frustrated and was so focused on trying to do a bunch of stuff for other people all the time that like doing anything for myself seemed like so incredibly self-centered. I don't know, I had like, I think we all kind of go through this at a point where there's, and maybe not, maybe it's just some of my past experiences, but basically I was at a point where I just felt like I needed to do stuff just for me. And this was kind of the first step in that process of really just like using yarns that just made me really, really happy, and it felt like such a splurge. So like using that special red skein of yarn that I've been hoarding on to like since I started knitting, and using some of my Dream in Color Club that again I had been hoarding on to. And then like I said, the Rowan one was such a perfect color, but again it felt like just such this splurge purchase at that time. So the whole thing felt very like just me centric, and it was kind of nice. It was kind of what I needed at that point in my life, was just something that was like just for me. And I know we all have those projects from time to time, but I also know that sometimes, especially like since we're getting close to the gift giving season and everything, and we're getting close to the holidays, and I know this year's gonna be a little bit different from other years because we can't all do our normal stuff in groups and everything. But I think it is really important to kind of remember those projects sometimes that we did just for us, and remember like how good that felt, and just take the time to really enjoy some of those projects that just make us really happy. And so yeah, that's why today, when it was like just a great start to the day with the snow falling and snuggling with my kid on the couch and watching the sun come up and just kind of that cool fall bite in the air, like this is like one of my special projects that I don't know, I just felt like today that I needed to wear this one. And so this one I'm never ever getting rid of, by the way, in case you were wondering. Like I will wear it till it falls apart. But yeah, so that's what I'm wearing today, and I'm kind of excited because I'm almost done with one of my whips, so I'll get to start in on the new mystery knit along and the new Stephen West mystery knit along, which everybody else is already on Clue 2, and that's fine. I had stuff that I had to get done, so you know, we're there. But I'm super excited. I've seen a couple spoilers and it looks amazing. So I'm super excited for it. That being said, should we look at some whips? So first off, this is not a whip, but this is my yarns already. I just need to cake them up. For my mystery knit along, Stephen West. And I'm super excited because I bought a kit from Stephen and Penelope. This is the first year I've ever done that. So again, like a little bit of self-splurging and making me feel really good. But I don't know, it made me super happy to actually get a kit. And a bunch of my friends were also getting kits, and so we were all talking on Discord to each other and kind of telling each other like which kits were available and like watching them as they popped up in the store and like as quantities changed and different things like that. And so we were all joking that it was West Knitsmas. And I may have overbought a little bit. I've got 3 kits. But this is my one that I'm doing during the knit along in the regular size shawl. I'll show you my other ones that I got in a different episode because it's a lot of yarn. It's a lot of yarn. And I have a couple other things that I wanted to show you guys, but I needed to move this so I could show you the whips. But this is a Stephen West kit and I'm so excited. Oh, and the dyer for this one is Ching fiber. It's their high twist BFL, which BFL is a beautiful base. I'm super excited. And these colors just make me so happy. Like, look at that. Look at how like electric that neon pink is. And then I really like the weird contrast it has with these while still matching. Like, it just makes me so happy. And then this navy, like I just feel like this will be a very wearable shawl and will go with a lot of things that I own. Kind of like this one. This one actually goes with a lot of my current clothes and a lot of the colors that I gravitate towards anyways in fall and winter, which is when I wear giant shawls. So yeah, so that was not a whip. That's like I'm super excited because once one of these whips are done, I get to cast on that one. It's gonna be amazing. I posted on Instagram a while back, I'm trying something new that was actually suggested by West Knits, of doing just 3 kind of active whips. One's kind of small, easy to take with. Right now that one's, my small one is my design project, which kind of easy to take with, kind of not because it's a design project. So that one is kind of in flux as to whether that's what I take with when I go places or my medium one. So my medium one is in here, and then this is my large one. And this one stays at home because this one is a sweater and I need to concentrate and figure out what I'm doing because it's like all over stitch pattern stuff, which it is a fairly easy to follow pattern. I just haven't done it consistently enough to have all of the things down, and I'm not completely past the yoke yet, so stuff is still happening at specific intervals. But we'll get there. It'll be good. It'll be fine. So I had in the picture on Instagram that I posted, I'd shared this one, this bag, with my other 2, and they look super cute together and I love them. And I love my Hohi bag, but I finished my sock that was in there. I'll show you that in a minute. So I've got to get that written down and off to the tech editor and everything, which by the time this video goes up, she should have that pattern. And so that one will be in process, and testing will be going on. So if you're interested in test knitting, check out my group on Ravelry or send me an email. I'm always looking for more testers. You'll find out why soon. But since that one is kind of at that stage where it's not actually like active knitting, I started this one. So this is my small kind of carry along project now. And this is super cute. Oh, I should give a spoiler. Sorry. If you're doing the Toad Hollow Halloween Countdown Mystery mini skeins set, and you have not yet cracked open your project bag, I'm sorry, that was the spoiler. But I'm giving you fair warning now. I'm gonna pull out my Halloween countdown project to the point that it's at the moment, and you're just going to have to mute it for a little bit and look away for a minute or something. I don't know, I'm sorry. I am behind a couple days in mine, so hopefully it doesn't ruin it for anybody. But yeah, so without further ado, look at how cute that is. That's the little project bag. This is from the ladies over at Toad Hollow, Helen and Mary Beth. Isn't that so cute? Look at all the little flowers and the little pumpkins. I love the pumpkins so much. And the little spider web. And the sewing spells book. And, oh, he is down there in the bottom. There's a little raven. Like, there's so many cute things on this fabric and in this bag. I just love it so much. It just makes me so happy. They do such cute stuff over at Toad Hollow. It just like brightens my day every time. So are you guys ready for some spoilers? Because I have opened up through day 4. I was going to do every other day because I'm opening and knitting into a project that I'm designing. And 20 gram minis are a lot to tackle in one day while you're also working and trying to do other projects. So I posted on Instagram again and everybody was like, no, do every other day. Which I have found out most people who got the countdown kits opened up everything anyways, like right away on the first day. So I don't feel as bad for being like, oh, I'm going to do every other day instead of the last 13 days of the month. So I actually started 2 projects, but they're related, so it only counts as one. I don't know if you guys watch the Great British Bake Off at all, but one of the episodes they did a Battenberg cake, and they're super cute and pretty, and they look like a checkerboard. And Helen and Mary Beth had shown that Helen is using their mini skeins to make a Battenberg cake blanket, or excuse me, a Battenberg blanket. It's based off the cake, and it's a free design. It's a free pattern, and the designer is Sandra Cherryheart on Instagram. I think it's Cherryheart Designs, but the pattern's on Ravelry. It's free, and it's a little crocheted blanket, and it's super cute. And you just make all these little squares, and they're all crocheted. So since I'm doing a design with this, I always put like a 10% buffer in my patterns for the yarn usage. So I didn't want to knit until I ran out of yarn for every segment on the shawl that I'm designing with them. But I also didn't want to waste a few grams of yarn off of each one since they're only 20 gram minis. And each of these little squares takes about 2 grams of yarn, which is perfect. So there's my 10% buffer. So each colorway, this was day 1, day 2, day 3. Each one has its own little square. And I'm just gonna keep making these little squares. The blanket pattern calls for like 1,000 of them. So I'm just gonna keep making them up for a while. And then when I feel like it, I'll sit down and start putting them together into something. But for right now, I'm just gonna start making a giant basket of squares. And basically I'm kind of planning on doing, anytime I'm starting a new design project, making 10% of the yarn into little squares and tossing them in the basket. So it'll kind of be like a little memory blanket of all the projects. So the design that I'm working on with it is this shawl. And it's kind of hard to tell because it's kind of a weird shape right now. But if you look at that shaping, it's a boomerang shawl. So I'll flip it over actually, that'll make more sense. So it'll end up being like that. It's kind of one of those asymmetric ones that are easy to just knit until you run out of room or run out of yarn. But to make it a little extra fancy, since the whole theme of the mini skein set is the Old Witch's Garden, and so all the minis are based off of plants that you would find in an old witch's garden. So I decided to do some stitch patterns that you might also find in a garden. So see, there's like some little trellising vines, and these are just cables, but I thought they just kind of looked like vines and trellises, and then there's some flowers here. So nothing too terribly complicated, and then all the shaping happens over here in garter stitch. So nothing too terribly complicated, but I don't know, it's just fun and I like it, and I'm keeping track of which rows the color changes happen on, but then I'll also have just a general total, so if you wanted to make it all just one color, you can. Super easy. And I haven't added it in yet because I've been busy. But I'm gonna go wind it up so I can cake it and get all my squares and my rows and everything set with it. But this was today's colorway. Isn't that pretty? I think that was comfrey. Let me double check here. Yes, comfrey. So they included a fun little sheet with info about the different flowers and what uses they might have if they're for good or evil. And I don't know, it's just a fun idea, and they do such pretty watercolor type colorways over at Toad Hollow, and I just love it. It makes me so happy. So yeah, so that is my small project that I'm working on. And I'll set that aside. This is my medium project, which this is another Toad Hollow bag. This was, I think, the very first one I bought from them last fall. And look how cute it is. It's got little owls in costumes, and they're just adorable. I just love them. So this one, a while back, Cece's Wool was partnering with Lola Bean Yarn Co. to, I can't remember her name. Basically, they were raising funds, and $5 from each skein went to the organization. I can't remember what it was, but basically, the colorway that I'm using is called Leaf Voter Suppression Behind. And the whole idea was to, one, make this look like a pile of leaves, but two was to try and stop voter suppression, essentially. I'm doing a terrible job of explaining it, I'm sorry. But basically, good cause. I managed to snag 2 skeins of DK in the special Lola Bean colorway, while hopefully helping people be able to still get out and vote, which I know that's a really hot topic for people. I am not going to get into politics on here because this is my happy space, and that's not that I don't want to hear about politics or anything like that. I live in a state that has some interesting views in some areas, and so I kind of like to be cautious of the discussions that I have and make sure that they actually are discussions and not just people yelling at me, because I don't feel like that helps anybody. So if you want to discuss things, definitely reach out to me and we can have a discussion. But this is just happy space right now, where we talk about yarn and fun things. However, that being said, regardless of what your political views are, go out and vote, because That it's just stupid to me that you wouldn't, frankly. I don't understand why you wouldn't. So that's my stance on it. I don't care. Obviously I have my own opinions, but if you have an opinion, you should express it through voting. So go vote, because that's what's actually going to change the needle. And that being said, the project that I'm working on with this beautiful, beautiful colorway, look at all those shades. I love that she's got all the warm fall leaf pile tones, and then there's also like this warm grayish purple that runs through there. And so I feel like this colorway is going to like go really, really well with a lot of things. And look at how cute it is. It matches the bag almost exactly. It makes me super happy. It's the little things, right? So the shawl I decided to make with it, because it's such a beautiful, squishy, yummy yarn, and it's just such a cozy colorway, I wanted, and because I've got all the other design stuff going on, I wanted a shawl that would just be like really chill and snuggly, and I wasn't gonna have to do knitting gymnastics, and I wasn't gonna have to try and finagle things or pay attention really super closely to a chart or anything like that. And so my friend Jen from the Down Cellar Studio podcast, she's Boston Jen 1 on Instagram. She has a pattern out called Grace and Frankie, which is named after the show. And it looked like such the perfect shawl for what I was wanting. Like, it's garter stitch and mesh in a giant triangle. How can you make anything much easier? But she has some nice little clever tricks in it that make it very, very, like, as a designer, they're little things that I appreciate because they're little things that can be roadblocks along the way to people. So, I'm gonna hold it up here. It's really scrunched on my needles because I'm almost done with it. But see that? That's one of those little detail things, this little edge stitch between the garter and the mesh. That's a nice little detail that I appreciated. She's got a nice row running right down the center. And once it's all laid out and off the needles, I'll make sure to show you guys, because laid out, it makes sense, different things that she did. See, and that's that border again that I was telling you about that I absolutely love. This is me being bad at stuff, and just ignore that. It's fine. It's variegated. It's fine. But then here's the edging, and it's just garter stitch, but there's a little trick she has you do, and when I saw what she was doing with it, it just made me super happy, because I was like, I have also had people comment about stuff happening with that, and so that was a very clever little trick, Jen. I really like that. But yeah, I'm so close. I think I am 16 rows away from the bind off, which at this point the rows are pretty long, but it's so squishy, you guys. Oh, I just love it. And this one is actually one I'm not keeping. So next episode I'll have to see if I can wrangle it from the person that's getting it so that I can show it to you all finished. Either that or I'll have to do a picture or something. I don't know, we'll figure something out, because it's being gifted, and I actually haven't done gift knitting in a really long time, just because, like, I don't know if you guys get this, but sometimes there's this attitude that I hear in the knitting world where it's like handmade stuff almost becomes too precious. And like the whole knit-worthy thing, I get it, and like I don't mind it, but I almost feel like it adds to this thought process that, you know, only certain people are deemed worthy enough for hand knits. And to an extent that's true, but like I was kind of thinking about this year because Jen does such an amazing job of gifting her knitwear to people, and just being very, very like open-hearted and giving, and I don't know, it set a really good example for me, because a lot of the verbiage that I hear really often, and that as I was kind of growing up as a knitter was told to me, is like I said, like very much like hand knitted things are only for special people and only for people who are worth making them for, which I get to an extent. I mean, if you're doing like a crazy difficult hard thing, that's one thing. If like you spend like months on a sweater only to have them give it to Goodwill the next week after you give it to them, that's one thing. But I don't know, it kind of got to a point for me where like I almost didn't want to give away a lot of my stuff, because a lot of my things were sample knits for my own designs, and some of them are good to keep, but I'm kind of at a point where like I have so many of them and I knit so many things that it's not quite the same level of like it's not quite the same level as somebody who like this is a sweater that they've spent months knitting. You know, a lot of my things I can knock out in under a month, which I mean is still a decent amount of time, but I don't know, I've been trying to just work on my own mindset with like, is it more valuable for me to keep here in a box in my basement where it'll be safe, or would it be more enjoyable and become more valuable by gifting it to somebody who would love it and use it? And yeah, it might get ruined, but if it's going to somebody who likes it, or even like, I don't know, because it's been so long since I've actually done like gift knitting that I don't even know who would actually be knit worthy anymore, which sounds terrible. But I don't know, it's one of those things where I've been trying to kind of look at my own view of things and kind of how I've gotten, where I've kind of pigeonholed myself into one area just because I've taken one idea and kind of run with it for so long that I don't really realize what I'm doing and like what negative consequences could come from it. Because I don't know, and now I'm just rattling on. Basically, listening to Jen's podcast and listening to her be so happy about gifting the stuff and getting to make things for her friends and family and things like that. And like, I miss that. And I mean, yeah, back when I was first knitting and made scarves for everybody and only like 2 of them actually got used. I mean, I was also a new knitter, and so, you know, I'm sure some of those projects were not great. But yeah, I don't know, I've been kind of just very inspired by listening to her stuff, and it makes me happy to listen to her be so happy about gifting her things that she's making. And so I'm gonna try doing that a bit more. Like I said, I've got different samples of things. Some of them, obviously, like the brand new samples that if we ever get to go to live events again, I'm gonna bring those with. Those new samples I'm gonna hold on to because I need those for booth samples. But some of them, like if it's a pattern that I need to rewrite, or the yarn doesn't exist anymore or something like that, I just need to make a new sample and get rid of the old one if I'm going to keep promoting that pattern. But there's always new patterns coming out too, so sometimes, I don't know, if you guys have any thoughts, I would love to hear them. Sorry, that kind of turned into a tangent. But super excited to actually be gifting a super squishy yarn, or a super squishy shawl in a very special yarn. And so yeah, so that should be fun. Last whip, because I know I'm already at 40 minutes. I talk a lot, guys. The last whip that I have going is the Joji Locatelli sweater called Worthy. Oh, I'm showing you the shoulder. Let's get it turned right here. Maybe. See, I am terrible at this. Like, I actually have not knit very many sweaters at all. I think I've completed 1.5, maybe. And the half is because it was a sweater pattern, but I didn't put any arms on it. So it kind of looked like a vest, but it was slightly oversized, so I told everybody it had cap sleeves. And then the only sweater that I've actually knit like all the way through was for a magazine, so I don't even have it anymore. So I'm trying my hand at sweaters again, and this is Worthy by Joji Locatelli. And it's got this really fun cable and bobble, or not cable, lace and bobble pattern right in the center. Then these textured stitches. And then on the sides, on the sleeves, it's harder to tell, but it's got this textured lace panel also with the textured sections there. I am curious to see how this one's going to look on me when it's done, because I don't like turtlenecks. And it has almost like a mock turtleneck look. I clearly did not actually look at this pattern very carefully. Also, I bought the pattern and the yarn back in April. Did not open the package of yarn because it was a surprise to future Shayna when she got some of her work done and had time to cast on a sweater. So I 100% thought that I had 2 shades of gray, like the exact same shades of gray that Joji used in hers, up until the moment that I opened this package. Past Shayna did not leave any notes for future Shayna, obviously. Also, I thought this was cables. It's not. It never says cables in the pattern anywhere. Like, literally all of this is user error. This is just me buying things months ago and then deciding I'm gonna do that now, and not having any idea what I bought. So, all that being said, I do really like the way it's knitting up. I like the way it looks. I like the texture. I used the same yarn that Joji bought for hers. And like I said, the sweater pattern is called Worthy. And she designed it because a friend of hers challenged her to make a beautiful sweater using what's considered like economy yarn, like cheap yarn. So the yarn that's being used is Line Brand Woolies. I think that like all the yarn for this sweater cost me like, it was like 30 or 40 bucks. It was super cheap. And I got it all from Love Crafts. And yeah, it's knitting up really nicely. I do like this color, and I remember why I bought this color. Because, and it's not exactly the color that I was hoping for, There's this colorway that Peyton's yarn used to carry that is now discontinued, that is like the most perfect shade of like warm oatmeal gray tan. Like it's a heathered one, and it is like the most gorgeous shade, and I absolutely love it. And I wanted a sweater, and I thought this would be it. It's not quite, but it is close, and I do really like it. It shows off the stitches really nicely. And like I said, I'm not quite through the yoke. I am gonna try and get through the yoke this month, because then I'll just have the body and sleeves. And I have to find out, I know Hohi is doing a fall knit along, and I'm doing this as part of that and part of the Zombie Knitting Network Hohi fall knit along. And I don't remember if it goes through November 1st or through the end of November. So I'm gonna find that out and get back to you on that. The one thing I did really like that I wanted to mention before I put this away, it was kind of frustrating because, like I said, I haven't done a whole lot of sweaters. And so initially I was like, ugh, why? And I know a lot of people put them in just because they like the way it fits better. There is short row shaping along the back. And like I said, I was kind of annoyed just because I didn't want to do short rows. I just wanted to sit and knit in a circle. And then I got to the yoke and I had to do all the increases and everything anyway. So clearly I did not know what I was in for when I cast on. But they're really well done. They're not difficult. I was just whining. And they go really fast. Like I said, I just, like, in my mind, I was like, oh, I'm gonna cast this on and knit in circles and it'll be perfect. Clearly, I'm not a sweater knitter. But I'm learning a lot with this one. I really like it. Like I said, I am slightly concerned about the neckline, because then once I looked in the picture, I was like, oh, it does look like a mock turtleneck on her slightly. So we'll see how it fits when it's done. If I don't like it, I do have somebody in mind, like, and it wouldn't be that I wouldn't like the overall sweater. It's just, I have a thing about stuff in my neck. Shawls are one thing, but like shirts are different. If I end up not caring for how it fits, I do have somebody in mind who is my size, who would definitely enjoy it and would actually take care of it and wear it and everything. So another possible gift knitting. But that is where that is. I will try to have at least one more ball of yarn knit up the next time I talk to you. We'll have that be the goal. That way the sweater gets done eventually. One ball of yarn per episode so I can show you the progress. And I will try and do progress keepers for you guys. So that is all the whips. Let's see. Ooh, okay. So we've only got a little bit here, so I'm gonna quick kind of blow through a couple finishes. This was my sock that I finished. I know it's just a basic sock, but this is the first sock in a 14 sock ebook that I'm writing. And yes, it is just a basic sock. This one is top down. So starting at the cuff, 2x2 ribbing, down the leg, heel flap and gusset, through the foot, just a standard toe, Kitchener closed. And I actually blocked it without putting it on my feet first. And I'm keeping it nice and pretty because this one will not have a mate. I'm making, basically I have all the designs conjured up and they're all in the process of being written, but I want to make sure that they actually work before I start knitting the samples, or before I have friends help me knit the samples. Because I'm shooting for a January release date on the ebook. I've got things in process, and it's very exciting. And initially I was wanting to do where it was like all sorts of techniques through the whole year and all this stuff. And some of the socks that I was drawing up, I kind of have this rule with my designs where, like, because I get very, very excited and then go way too far, just always. And so I've been designing for long enough that I know this about myself. And there are patterns where I write up the pattern and I start knitting the sample, and partway through I'm like, I don't even want to knit this thing. Nobody else is going to want to knit this. This is awful. So to kind of preempt those things from happening, I've gotten to where I come up with my ideas, and then I kind of go through and tweak, and everything, like pretty much every design. I will give you that there's one or two that I do a really good job keeping myself in check as I'm coming up with the initial idea. But almost every design, as I'm going through after I've been super excited, like I let myself take a break away from it for a little bit and then go back and revisit it. I always take at least one thing out. And usually it's the thing that, as I'm thinking through the process of how the project is going to be made, if there's something that stands out where I'm like, that is going to be a lot of math to figure that part out. Gone. That part is done. We will not be including the part with all the extra math steps, because that means the knitters themselves are going to probably have to do a lot of like stitch count changes or other weird things that I'm just not going to put them through. So with the, sorry, I lost my train of thought. With the sock book, what I'm doing is, in January, I've got basic sock patterns for cuff down, with a heel flap. The next one that I'm doing will be toe up with a short row heel. And those two will be 2 free patterns on my site in January, because I'm gonna do a basic like socks 101 class. So we'll have basically like week 1 would have like an intro, and here's a basic like construction, like why it's constructed this way sort of thing, and kind of a recipe version of this sock. And then week 2 will actually be this sock pattern for like kids through adults. And then week 3 would be kind of a, here's why you do these things for the toe up. And then week 4 would be, here's the free toe up sock pattern. And I'm doing those just to kind of be like, here's a good intro point. Last year I did a shawl kind of the same way. It was a Stashberry pie shawl, and basically it was my pie shawl class, but in blog post form. And it was really fun. I had some history and just a general recipe and a full pattern, and it was really nice. I really got a lot out of it myself, because it was a fun thing to be able to contribute to the knitting community. And just kind of the responses that I got back from it and different things like that was really fun, because you could tell that some people were just, taking the pattern and having fun playing with their stash, which was the point. But then there were others that were actually taking like the recipe version, and they were like, oh, that's really easy to tweak, and we're kind of going from there. And so I kind of want that to be something that I do every January. So this year we're doing socks, and then to kind of correspond with it, I'm doing an ebook that's coming out, and basically once a month at the beginning of January, February, all through the year for 2021, will be a new sock pattern that comes out into the ebook. And like the whole ebook in January will be $2, February $4, March $6. So each month it goes up by $2, but whatever month you purchase it in, you still get all the patterns. So you purchase it in January, you get all 12 patterns as they come out. You purchase it in March, you get the January, February, March patterns right away, and then the rest of the year as they come out. But it just kind of doing that gradual increase in price. Hopefully we'll get people interested right away in it, but it'll still be available as the year progresses. And since you have access to more patterns right away with each month, that's why the price is going up a little bit. But yeah, so it should be kind of fun. I'm excited for it. I've got some really great indie dyers that are partnering with me. One of them arrived in the mail. I'm so excited. So I've worked with Jonathan from MJ Yarns on stuff before. I've got the Naiad shawl that I released a couple months ago now. Last month? Maybe it was last month. But I did his yarns, I used his yarns for that one, and that one's a fun shawl where it's based on the pie shawl template, but you kind of mix and match patterns and can place them where you want in the shawl. So if you want a lot of beads, you can have a lot of beads. If you don't want a lot of beads, you can leave them out completely. Same thing with some of the stitch patterns. If you see one that you really, really like, you can put it in an area where you will see it a lot. If you see one that you really are like, I don't want to do that, you don't have to. It's up to you. But he makes these really, really gorgeous saturated colors. And I was talking with him about the sock book, and we're gonna partner together for the February socks, which happens to be my birthday month. And a lot of his colorways are named after gemstones. So we thought it would be pretty perfect if we used amethyst for the February yarn. Isn't that gorgeous? I am so excited for that. And a lot of the sock patterns will have different textures and stitch patterns within them. So some of them will be pretty straightforward, but some of them will be a little bit more complex. So it's not going to be like a whole book of knit purl patterns necessarily, because I've been kind of playing around with some different things and looking through some different stitch dictionaries and finding some really, really fun, pretty patterns. Almost all of them will include charts, and that's not to scare anybody away. They will also be written. But yeah, and I mean, if you think about it, a sock pattern, even if it looks slightly complex, you really can't make it that complex. Otherwise, you'll only be able to give it in like 2 sizes. And most of the sock patterns that I'm planning, I have to finish running all the numbers, but we should be able to do from kids all the way through adult sizing. And a lot of them I'm also going to try to offer as both toe up or cuff down options. So really, I mean, with the ebook, you'd be getting essentially 24 kid through adult patterns, because you'll have a version that's written for toe up and a version that's written for cuff down. So it's kind of a fun challenge, but we'll get there. But that way it's really a versatile book and you can get a lot of use out of it, and there should be a lot of fun things that you guys are interested in. But yeah, so that was one of the acquisitions. And then I'm just gonna show you guys a couple other things here, and then we'll save the rest for next time so it doesn't get too long. I'm losing my light if you couldn't tell. It's starting to get dark out and I'm getting very shiny. So right now, Pigskin Party is going on, and that is hosted by Boston Jen, so Downseller Studio Podcast, and it's really fun. I know nothing about football. Some of the people participating know a lot about football. We at this house have no clue. I know what a football looks like and the difference between a football field and a soccer field. That's pretty close to about it from my knowledge. But the nice thing is, for the Pigskin Party, you don't really need to know anything about football. You just need to be able to go online and post for points. And by posting for points, I mean you just need to post knitting things or crochet things, kind of just make along things. And that's kind of the fun thing. She doesn't have it listed as like a knitting along or a crochet along or anything like that. It's literally just a make along. You go at your own pace. If you want to like make all the things and do all the stuff, there's extra ways to get tons of bonus points by participating in the Ravelry group and posting on Instagram and all this stuff. Like, she's got a bunch of different ways to earn a whole bunch of different points, but you don't have to do any of that if you don't want to. If you want just a chill make along with a really great group of people where you just make the stuff you were gonna make anyways, and you just do a post now and then to let them know, you know, that you're there, basically. There's a Google form that she made, and you just fill that out with your project that you completed, and that's how you get your points. And, you know, it doesn't have to be where you're doing all the things. You can just have a chill, relaxed time, and if you want, follow on Instagram or on Ravelry. It's really, really nicely set up to be really user-friendly. And so if you want to come join us, come join us. All the info is at downsellerstudio.com. And I've been having a hard time figuring out links to put on YouTube, so I will try to link it below. If nothing else, like I said, go to downsellerstudio.com, and all the info is there for the pigskin party. But she also has sponsors, and I'm one of the sponsors. So if you use any of my patterns, you do get bonus points. I'm a Snack Shack sponsor, so you get 20 points for using one of my patterns. But you also get points for buying yarn from vendors and using it. So I may have bought some yarn. I got some yarn from Fiber Nymph Dye Works, and I'm super excited. I've followed them for a really long time. I think this is actually the first time I've ever bought anything from them, which is kind of like astonishing to me. I don't know why I have not in the past, but this one is a special colorway. I got it on the Sparkle base, and it's called Punt, and it's the special exclusive colorway for the pigskin party. So you get extra bonus points for using exclusive things, which is fun. And it's self-striping sock yarn. PA Knitwit, Sarah Jordan, I think is her actual name. She is also a Snack Shack sponsor, and she has this really cool cowl and hat pattern that she made that uses slip stitches with self-striping yarn, and it makes this really cool texture, and it looks pretty simple and fun. And I was kind of thinking this would be perfect for a hat. I just need to figure out a nice contrast color for the brim, because, right, isn't that cute? And who knows, maybe I'll just use this for the whole thing and not do a contrast color. I just love how sparkly it is, and I just thought that would be such a cute hat. I mean, it'll be cute socks too, but the hat was what I had in mind. Plus, I get bonus points for using a designer pattern from the Snack Shack. And then, oh, I didn't realize this one has bonuses. Look at that. Okay, so what this is from her pie lines of yarn, and basically it is a self-striping yarn. I'm gonna tuck that back in. And this is her pumpkin pie. And what makes the pie series different is it's actually striped in the sequence of pie. So this is super cool. Again, I'm kind of a super nerd sometimes, and this makes me really happy. And on top of that, since it's pumpkin pie, these are all different shades of heirloom pumpkins. So like, see that pretty bluey, greeny gray? those are like one of my favorite kinds of pumpkins. And that's what the special thing was. It's a list of the different pumpkins. And I can't even try to pronounce that bluey, silvery, greeny color, because it's some weird variety. But I was so excited the moment that she showed this, because she did a special live event for the Pigskin Party kickoff. And I just had to have it, and I got it on her tweed base. Look at how pretty that is. I just thought that it would be so perfect on the tweed. I'm 100% making these into vanilla socks, and they will be for me, and nobody else gets them. I'm very excited about this one. So those are some of my recent acquisitions, and we're at just over an hour, so I'm gonna save the rest of the acquisitions for next time. I think I've talked so much about everything. I was gonna try and include something else that's non-knitting, but I think I kind of covered everything, and I'm sure you guys are getting sick of hearing me talk, so I will save other things for next time. I have to go get my kid from Grandma's house anyways, and this lighting is doing some weird things. So I think we'll leave it there and pick back up in 2 weeks. I'll show you some other things that I've been doing and some of my special acquisitions from Lola Bean. And I'm so excited. I've been waiting for months for this one. And it's beautiful. It's super beautiful. So on that note, I hope you guys have a great day. Come visit me over at YumiYarns.com or find me on Instagram. Leave any messages in the comments below. I promise I will read all of them. I don't have very many followers right now, so definitely leave me a note. Yeah, and I hope you guys have a great couple of weeks, and I will see you in about 2 weeks' time. Have a great day and happy knitting or crafting or whatever you're making. Bye, guys.